Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into Joshua chapter 9, a story that feels like a tense political thriller set in the ancient world. The dust has barely settled from the fall of Jericho and the destruction of Ai. The name of Israel and their God is echoing across the hills of Canaan, and fear is spreading like wildfire. Kings are trembling, and nations are scrambling. But this chapter isn't about another epic battle. It's about something far more subtle and, in many ways, more dangerous: deception. It's a powerful lesson that shows us that courage on the battlefield isn't enough. We also need wisdom, discernment, and the humility to constantly seek God's guidance, especially when things seem to be going well. So let's set the scene. As news of Israel's victory spreads, the kings west of the Jordan River, those in the hill country, the western foothills, and along the coast of the Mediterranean, do exactly what you'd expect. They panic. Fear drives them together, and they form a massive coalition, a united front to wage war against Joshua and the Israelites. They decide their only hope is to meet strength with strength. But not everyone agrees. One group, the people of Gibeon, hears the same news and comes to a very different conclusion. They know they can't win a head-to-head fight. They've heard about the power of Israel's God, so they decide that if they can't survive by fighting, they'll have to survive by thinking. Their plan is not one of military strategy, but of masterful deception. The Gibeonites orchestrate an elaborate performance. They gather old, worn-out sacks for their donkeys. They find animal skin wineskins that are cracked, patched, and falling apart. They put on sandals that are so old they're barely holding together, and dress in ragged, torn clothes. And for the final touch, they pack provisions of bread that are dry, hard, and covered in mold. They transform themselves from nearby inhabitants into weary travelers who have journeyed from a land far, far away. With their disguises perfected, they make their way to the Israelite camp at Gilgal. They approach Joshua and the leaders of Israel and deliver their opening line: "We have come from a distant country. Now make a treaty with us." They don't appeal to Israel's strength or challenge their power. Instead, they appeal to their sympathy and their interpretation of God's law, which allow for treaties with nations outside the Promised Land. The Israelites are suspicious at first. Their initial reaction is one of caution. They reply, "But maybe you live near us? If you do, how can we possibly make a treaty with you?" This was the critical moment. The Gibeonites know they have to be convincing. They respond with a clever mix of flattery, partial truths, and outright lies. They start by humbling themselves, saying, "We are your servants." Then they invoke God's name, but very strategically. "We have come because of the fame of the Lord your God," they declare. "We have heard reports of him, all that he did in Egypt, and all that he did to the 2 kings of the Amorites east of the Jordan." Notice what they mention: Egypt, the Red Sea, and victories from long ago on the other side of the Jordan. And notice what they conveniently leave out: Jericho and Ai. By omitting these recent nearby victories, they strengthen their claim of having come from a distant land, a place so far away that news of these latest conquests hadn't reached them before they left. It was a brilliant, calculated lie. To seal the deal, they present their evidence. They point to their moldy bread, saying, "This bread of ours was warm when we packed it at home on the day we left to come to you. But now see how dry and moldy it is." They show their cracked wineskins and their tattered clothes and sandals, all presented as proof of a long, arduous journey. And here, right here, is where Israel makes its fatal mistake. The scripture says the men of Israel sampled their provisions, but they did not inquire of the Lord. They looked at the evidence with their own eyes. They used their own human reasoning. They saw the moldy bread, the worn-out clothes, and it all seemed to add up. Everything the Gibeonites said appeared to be true. So they trusted what they could see and touch, instead of consulting the one who sees all things. Based on this flawed assessment, Joshua makes a treaty of peace with them. He and the leaders of the assembly swear an oath in the name of the Lord to let them live. They believed they were making a wise decision based on the available facts. The problem was, the facts were a fabrication, and they had neglected their most important source of wisdom. The truth, as it always does, eventually comes out. Just 3 days after making the treaty, the Israelite army continues its advance into Canaan, and they arrive at the cities of the Gibeonites. Gibeon, Kephirah, Berev, and Kiriath Jearim. These weren't in some distant land. They were right there, in the heart of the territory God had promised to Israel. The deception is exposed. When the people of Israel realize they've been tricked, they are furious. They grumble against the leaders who made the oath. They feel betrayed and foolish. Why not just attack them anyway? They were deceived, after all. But the leaders understand something profound. They tell the people, "We have sworn an oath to them by the Lord, the God of Israel, and we cannot touch them now." The oath wasn't just a promise between two groups of people. It was sworn in the name of God. To break it would be to dishonor God's name before the other nations. It would be a stain on their integrity. So Israel is bound by its own words. They have to live with the consequences of a decision made without prayer. But while the Gibeonites are spared from destruction, their deception doesn't go without consequences. The leaders declare their punishment. The Gibeonites will be spared, but they will be cursed. From that day forward, they are to serve as woodcutters and water carriers for the entire community, and specifically for the altar of the Lord. They are saved from death, but they are humbled, brought low, and put into a permanent state of servitude. Joshua then summons the Gibeonite leaders and confronts them directly. He asks the simple, piercing question, "Why did you deceive us?" Their answer is refreshingly honest. There's no more trickery now. They say, "Your servants were clearly told how the Lord your God had commanded his servant Moses to give you the whole land and to wipe out all its inhabitants from before you. So we feared for our lives because of you, and that is why we did this." Their motivation was raw, primal fear. But it was a fear born from believing the reports about Israel's God. They believed God was powerful enough to do exactly what he said he would do. So they chose deception as their path to survival. They chose submission over rebellion. Joshua honors the oath. He protects them from the angry Israelites who wanted to attack them. But he formalizes their sentence. They will be servants in the house of God, perpetually cutting wood for the sacrificial fires and drawing water for the temple rituals. And in a strange twist of irony, their punishment actually brings them close to the very presence of the God they feared. They become servants in the sanctuary, a people who, through their desperate act, find a place near the altar of the Lord. So what can we take away from this incredible story? First, it teaches us that discernment matters just as much as courage. Israel was undefeated in open battle, but was completely outsmarted by a clever lie. This reminds us that our biggest threats aren't always the ones we can see coming. Spiritual warfare is often a battle for the mind. Second, decisions made without prayer carry heavy consequences. Joshua and the leaders were competent, experienced, and successful, but their success may have made them overconfident. They relied on their own judgment and were led astray. It's a sobering reminder that no matter how gifted or successful we are always one prayerless decision away from a major mistake. Third, God honors his name, even when his people make mistakes. The oath was kept, not because the Gibeonites deserved it, but because God's name was attached to it. This shows us the incredible weight and sanctity of the commitments we make in God's name. And finally, God can bring purpose out of our failures. Israel made a mistake, but God turned it into an object lesson for generations. The Gibeonites, through their fear and deception, ended up in a position of service at the very center of Israel's worship. Their story becomes a permanent part of Israel's story. Joshua chapter 9 is a vital lesson for every leader, And for every believer, victory and success can sometimes dull our spiritual alertness. We can become so focused on the next big battle that we fail to notice the subtle deception right in front of us. It urges us to stay humble, stay vigilant, and above all, to never stop inquiring of the Lord. When God's voice is ignored, even the sharpest human reasoning can lead to costly errors. Thank you for joining me for this study. If this was helpful, please subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Let's continue to learn and grow together. See you next time.